All right. Welcome to part 3 of our Let's Learn How to Play with Hot Lead and Cold Steel. We're talking about shooting, charging, melee, all the good stuff. Well, I think it is at least. The other stuff's cool too, but gotta love when you're blowing people away or doing some stabbing. All right, so let's start off with a little bit of just stuff from the rule book here for everyone's enjoyment. So in the shooting phase on page 30, who can shoot? Each unit that can draw a straight line of sight through their front arc to an enemy unit within firing range can shoot. And simply state you wish to fire. So that's not too hard. Visible targets, or viable targets, units using small arms must shoot at the most threatening target, which is generally the closest enemy. There are exceptions to this. Units that are partially obscured, units that are only partially within the front arc, skirmishers, or fleeing, retreating units can be ignored. As we stated in the general principles section, try to use some common sense in situations that are unclear. Soldiers will be ordered to fire at the most threatening target first. When there are multiple equal threatening targets, you are allowed to divide your fire, which we'll talk about later. Shooting through gaps is big, especially when I'm going to move a little bit here just so you don't bounce with me. We're talking artillery. So we're going to go back to where we were. I'm going to pivot a little bit to the right. Whee! So you see an artillery piece in the bottom left. There's actually one in the top right of the screen too. It was deemed tactically unwise to fire from a second line. This only happened when there was enough space between units in the first line. Of course, in miniature wargaming, distances are abstract. Therefore, we've come up with the following solution for the firing from a second line. Units in the second battle line may fire through gaps in the first line if the gap is at least as wide as the firing unit's front arc. So that can also be for lines in units in multiple lines, as the Confederates are on the far side of the battlefield over there. And what I thought was mass columns is actually not. That's multiple lines there. That's the big one most units are going to be in. So that line in the back, they can't shoot at all. Because there's no space and everything's kind of, if we look on these Union guys, it's straight ahead. These guys here can't shoot because they got that 1 inch gap is not their frontage. Now artillery piece has got a smaller frontage, so as long as they're 1 inch wide on each side of this artillery piece, boom boom, they could fire through it. All right, and we'll one of the later videos, this will be covering artillery and cavalry. They're kind of at the end of the rule book. It's Friday, having an adult beverage here, yummy. All right, so looking at small arms, you got those bad boys. So if you want to look at those, that's fine. I'm going to read about them just in a minute here. I've got a pretty good selection. And very similar to a regimental and brigade fire and fury. You got rifled muskets that have a range of 24 inches, and they got a point blank, a short range, and effective. That seems to be the consistent measuring it out. You got smoothbore muskets, and then they've got repeating rifles. So not quite as many different weapons as brigade fire and fury, but it's decent. I'm a little terrified to use repeating rifles. I'm not even going to discuss them right now because they're mostly used out west. I was surprised to hear at Perryville, the Union, when they're making their last stand, towards the end of the day, the Confederates are, they've taken all the front hills, several hills. The last line, the Union was behind stone walls, and actually what stopped the Confederates was not only they retired, but multiple, I think a big percentage of the last unit that was behind the stone wall for the Federals, the guys had used their own money to buy repeating rifles on the streets of Louisville, which is west of Perryville, earlier on before they marched to the east. And those gentlemen with that concentrated fire were actually the big reason the Confederates kind of stopped their advance, which was the high water mark of the Kentucky campaign. They just between trying to attack that stone wall at the top of a third set of hills. They'd already taken 2, and the Unions dug in back there, and then they've got a large percentage of repeating rifles, you know, basically tripling the fire of what the Confederates could pour out. That stopped them dead. So I'm not going to touch on repeating rifles probably at first, maybe get into it later, but no. Dividing fire, it looks like you can, if you're firing straight ahead and there's a Union or units split in front of you, they're in your front arc, you can divide your fire. So if you had 8 shots, and I did hear back from the author of the book, that was very nice. He's very active on the Facebook group on he said that was a typo in the beginning. I think in my first video I mentioned that the unit's stats were wrong, and that's you know, I'm late to the party. Everybody's known that for a long time, so I apologize. So the standard stats for an infantry unit, which are, you know, back here, use the ones on page 62 because they're not the typo. A large infantry regiment is got to move. If all the units have 10-inch moves, they have 8 shots at 6+. They melee with 8 attacks at 6+. They have a unit cohesion or coherency of 24, and they have morale of 6+. And then it goes down to average is at 18, small is at 12, and tiny is at 6. And artillery, I didn't even bother looking into that yet, or cavalry that much. But so if you had 8 shots, you could split it 4 and 4 at each target, and it would just roll, trying to get a 6+ before any modifiers to try to score some hits. So that's good stuff. All right. So they got some modifiers here. We can look at these. There are some over here too as well, and we'll discuss them real quick. So you've got those 8 shots. Let's go with the large infantry unit because these guys have 24 in each of them. Let's say the Union was going to shoot. So they have 8 shots, needing 6+. They're using rifled muskets. The maximum range is 24. These guys are at 17. So short range ends at 12, excuse me. Less than 6 is point blank. 6 to 12 is short. 12 to 24 is long. Or effective, excuse me. Those are the terms they use. Effective range has no modifier. Let's say it's their first shot, just like in sharp practice. You have to keep track of your first fires. So you get a bonus there of +1. They took the extra time to pack in their powder as good as they can. Aim fires if you're behind cover. So you can take the time to either put the weapon on a dug-in position, or some trees, or a stone wall, or a fence. And then you can actually, because these guns, if you ever held one of these muskets, they're heavy. I've only held one once, especially if you got the bayonet at the end, and you're already not eating enough, and everything else, and you've already shot it 50 times. It's kind of stout. So holding it out there and then pulling the trigger, and you got a hell of a recoil. Some of these things were like 50 calibers, I think. It'll wear you down. And so having that, be able to lay the weapon on a tree branch or something, or a stone wall and shoot is even in modern war, we use sandbags or anything we can use, or bipods, or T&Es or whatever we got to try to make them more stable. So that's a +1 for an aim fire. And then you get minuses for target and soft cover, and target and hard cover is -2. And there's also a -1 for when you're in the charge reaction to stand and fire when they're only 1 move away. You get a -1 for that. We'll roll some dice here and have a little bit of fun, since I'm jonesing to play a game anyway. 1 second. All right, let's say General Harris here. The Union got the initiative. They're 17 inches away from the Confederates heading towards them. He's going to order both of his regiments in the front to both fire a volley on their opposing rebel, whatever the heck, forces across the way from them. All right, so let's go ahead and work our way through that. They're at effective range. Let's say they've already been shooting. So it's going to be really no modifiers here at all. So it's just going to be 6 pluses on 8 dice. So that was pathetic. So they scored 1 hit on the Confederates. So I'm going to mark them with 1 casualty. And I'm not going to touch on it now, but because I haven't really read on the artillery yet. But if that artillery was going to fire at the same target with that line regiment, they would combine their stuff together and fire together at that unit. But we'll deal with that later. That's in the advanced rules. All right, 2nd Regiment going to fire across at these gentlemen. 8 shots, needing 6s. So they smacked that rebel unit just with 2 casualties, and that would be the end of the Union fire. So now let's say the Confederates decide not to move, and they're just going to engage in musketry across this field at the Union counterpart. I'm hoping to get a 10 on one of these rolls so we can go over that. All right, I decided to spice this up. Let's say Donelson's regiment over there for the Confederacy passed a forwards order. Is that what it's called? I think it's just a one move and you can shoot. There's no modifiers for that. Yeah, forwards order. So they move forward. Now they're within 12 inches. And now they're going to shoot back. So let's see what the modifiers will be for that. We'll also say that not only do they move forward and they're into short range, let's say this is their first fire as well. Let's see how they do. Firing with they have a +2 modifier shooting at the rebels. Or shooting at the Federals, sorry. So they smacked the Union with 4 casualties on that first volley. And now we'll move over to the 2nd Regiment firing on the far side, shooting ahead at their Union counterparts. Holy cow, that was a crushing volley. The 2 10s, both do, because they're at a short range, both do 2 casualties each as rounds go through one guy and pass through another one, killing him as well. So they lose 8 casualties. So we'll show you what that looks like, because you're moving in factors of 6. So we'll take off 6 guys and they'll have 2 extra casualties. So now you see that unit has been crushed. They're now a small unit. Or is that what it is? It goes from large to small. Excuse me while I just make sure this is right. I don't want to tell you wrong. Oh, they're going to be 1 size smaller. They go to average. They have a unit coherency of 18 guys now. If they get 4 more casualties, they will go down to a small regiment with 12 bases. And then they lose the ability to fight harder. They lose the ability, to fight as good. They lose the ability to shoot as good as they have casualties. So that is shooting. And they'd have to take a morale test now if they lost a stand from fire. So that is how shooting works. So with alternating initiative, there's a chance that, let's say the Union won this round. They get to shoot first. The Confederates fire back. Now the Confederates, let's say they win the next initiative, so they can fire again. So they're getting 2 volleys off into this Union unit before they can fire back. They are allowed in the rules if they haven't fired in that turn yet. So that would be, let's say that was this is turn 2. That'll be in turn 3. They're allowed to return fire right away. So extra housekeeping thing for me, because I love to use cotton balls, is to remove them at the end of every turn, because it has an effect on the gameplay. One, you want to do it on artillery pieces, because artillery can fire in the artillery section and they can't fire in the shooting phase. So if you're doing a preparatory bombardment, yes, that's what you want to do. Then they can't fire again. It's just a good housekeeping thing. Also, let's say the Confederates lose initiative. The Union fires in turn 2. And then at the end of turn 2, the Confederates decide to charge that Union unit that fired on them. the Union would not have the option to fire, get close, to stand and shoot at them on the way in, because they'd already fired in that turn. And then now the turn ends, you clear all the cotton balls away, which I don't do a lot because I like just looking at cotton balls, but I'll have to start doing that too and be a better housekeeper. Because if it was the other way around and it was the beginning of the turn and the Confederates charged, and the Union could then stand and shoot as they came on in, depending on how far away they were. So we'll discuss that now as we get into the charge and melee phase. This would be an example of the stand and fire. As the Union is behind that snake rail fence, they were allowed to rest their firearms on that as a base, as a kind of a holder to keep their guns more stable, and they would get a +1 to hit on those rebels as they came on in. And if any of these shots came in from the flank or the rear, the unit receiving the fire from that rear or flank quarter, no matter how many hits they took, they'd always have to take a morale test, just because of the unnerving getting shot from a direction you're not expecting, or having to deal with guys shooting from the front and from the sides would just be demoralizing. So there's a possibility your boys could hold up. There's also a possibility they could fracture, even just with one casualty. All right, let's talk about melee. A unit must be issued a successful charge command to be able to move into contact with an enemy unit and engage in melee combat. So that's that 8+ we were talking about. Charge is the next thing. A unit must be able to draw a straight line of sight to an enemy unit in order to be eligible to charge. If it cannot draw a line of sight, no charge order may be given to that unit. A charge morale test. A unit that is declared the target of a charge must take an immediate morale test as described in the morale section 42, which we might actually get in this video. Units test on their current morale value. Units that are charged by smaller units do not have to make a morale test. Units that are charged in the flank and take a morale test unless they are charged in the flank or rear. For example, a large unit being charged by an average unit does not need to make a morale test. Units that are charged in the flank or rear suffer a morale test penalty. So if you're charged in the flank, it's a -1 to your morale test. If you're charged in the rear, it's -2. Hey, all right, so we're going to work through a charge here. This thing's picked me up or not. There he goes. And there we go. That's kind of cool. I like that. All right, so we're going to have this Confederate Union here, or Confederate unit here, the brigade, is going to try to pass an order and charge this Union force here. Now, only one unit can charge one unit, even though multiple units could possibly do it, and they have to be in their front arc. But we're going to work our way through that. So we're going to see can they pass an order? Then we have to take a Then we have to take a morale test for the unit being charged. At least with the Confederates charging, the Union actually has one smaller unit. We have to worry about it the other way around this way. And then we'll go through, if they survive the morale test, and then we'll do, we could see supports, we could have charge reactions. We'll say the Union, this is the beginning of turn 3 or something like that. So that'll be it. And then we'll go from there. So we'll work our way through those scenarios. And we'll do this charge over here first, and we'll do this charge here, and then you can see it all at once. And yeah, and I'll have to remember to not screw it up and get the rules confused compared to Regimental Fire and Fury, where you can charge with cold steel or not charge with cold steel. I think it's just straight up charging on this one, so there might not be any benefits, but I'll look into that. All right, so we'll see in a minute. All right, we'll just kind of have some fun with the gimbal as we go across the battlefield here. This thing is so awesome. I wish I knew how to use it all the way. Okay, we'll get to some dice rolling here. And yeah, there's the battlefield, so that's kind of cool as heck. All right, see you in a minute. Oh, okay. So first things first, let's say these guys have to get an 8 plus. They're going to order a charge. We'll say that they've given 2 ADCs to this commander. We'll say he's an excellent officer. So he's going to have a +2 and 2 ADCs, so a +4. So and he's an 8. So he's going to need a 4 plus to get the brigade to charge. All right, so General Donaldson gets a 6. He gets the unit to pass an order. They will move forward. Well, they can go 10 inches per move, and they can up to 3 moves. They are 1 move away. So that's going to affect, they're actually at 10 inches. So that's going to affect the Union response if they do choose to fire back. All right, so here we go. Now we do the morale test. All right, so the unit on the left is an average size unit, so their morale is going to be a 7 plus. The unit on the right, the Union on the right is a large unit, so they're going to have a 6 plus break test or morale test to see if they can keep it together on the way in. Here's your modifiers. You've got a steady unit within 12 inches. That's a +1. Shooter charged in the flanker rears -1. Rifled gun firing canister roll of 8 plus is -1. Per point of damage from shell ammunition is a -1. Shot or charged in the rear arc is -2. And a smoothbore gun or a howitzer firing canister is a -2. So really the thing we have to deal with is a +1 modifier for each one of these guys to see if they pass the test. The first charge reaction is this, or charge morale test is unit on the right. They have a morale of 6 because they're a large unit. They're +1 because they have an ordered unit within 12 inches of them, and we'll see how they do. All right, so they pass, and they can do a reaction to this close range 1 move charge. These guys are an average unit, so they're going to have a morale of 7 plus, but they're going to go down to 6 because of the units that are in order close to them. So that's awesome. Both units passed their morale tests. All right, how to test. So we talked about that already with the morale. You roll the dice, you strike it, you try to get above your morale test. Failing the morale test, a unit that fails its morale test becomes unnerved. That's the first bad phase, and moves away one full move directly away from the enemy, ignoring all movement penalties. If the unit would move off table, it halts in disarray at the edge of the table. If it is already unnerved, it becomes panicked and moves away 1 full move from the nearest enemy. If that means the unit moves off table or is forced to move within 12 inches of an enemy unit without a friendly unit present within 12 inches, the fleeing unit is considered lost or captured. A unit that has become unnerved or panics are close to complete collapse and are in no position to do any fighting. They may not receive any orders until rallied. All right, a rally test, that's one of the phases we go through. At the start of your new turn, troops are unnerved or panicked may try to rally. They receive a +1 bonus to the rally test if they are steady, friendly troops within 12 inches. Units that successfully rally, reform in line of battle facing the closest enemy unit. They may receive no orders this turn, as officers and NCOs are still trying to reestablish some semblance of order, forcing the men to compose themselves, reload, and so forth. Unnerved units that fail to rally at the start of a turn become panicked. Panic units that fail to rally are lost or moved from the table. Brigade, division, and corps commanders may help to try to rally their troops. A commander may try to rally troops if they're within 12 inches. Move the commander within 1 inch of the unit they're trying to rally. A commander may only try to rally 1 unit per turn, and only 1 commander may try to rally a particular unit. As is seen in the order of battle phase, commanders can give brigade bonuses or penalties when it comes to orders and rallying their troops, in addition to their ability to re-roll 1 morale test per turn. For the sake of ease, we've provided the list here again for easy reference. Excellent officer does +2, great officer +1, competent officer no modifiers, and an incompetent officer is -1. All right, so that's enough on morale. We covered that. Yay, that's pretty awesome. All right, let's go over charge reactions. You've got a couple options here. So charge responses are stated after defending player has made a successful morale test, which both of these units have. All right, so charge reactions, and they have to be in line of sight. It's important to note the defending unit that cannot draw line of sight to a unit that may not choose a charge reaction. So if you can't see him, you can't react to it. So if you're getting charged in the flank or in the rear, you just take it like a boss. You're hosed. So option number 1 is stand and fire. Units that are being charged may fire if attackers if they have not yet fired in the turn. So the Union in this turn is not fired yet. To see how well prepared the unit receiving the charge is first determine how many moves the attacking unit needs to make contact. So they're 10 inches away. 10 inches is 1 move. They're not going through any psycho cover. So here they come. So that's 1 move. So if it's 3 moves away, the fire counts as shooting at point blank range +2 to hit. A roll of 10 does 3 casualties. So that's horrible. 2 moves away, the fire counts as shooting at short range, +1 to hit. Roll of 10 does 2 damage. And 1 move away, they're coming at you fast. Counts as shooting at effective range, -1 to hit. So all of these are going to be coming in at short range. They're going to be -1 to hit. They've already done their first fire. We go back to that shooting thing. Effective range doesn't give a bonus, so this is going to be straight up needing 6s. The unit on the right has got 8 shots, needing 6s. Let's see how they do on the way in. So this battalion is going to need, so they're going to roll 8 dice, needing 6s to hit them as they come on in. So let's see what happens. So they scored 2 hits as they come on in, and we'll just move them in contact, and they'll take 2 more casualties as they come in. So that first unit charges in. Just as a reminder, if one of these units would have failed their morale test from the charge, the General Harris still has a reroll. I think that's his name. Yeah. He would have a reroll to try to break that if they didn't make it. All right, so the first units come in. The other unit, so the whole brigade did move together, so the support came with them. I'm going to go ahead and try this unit now just to move them up, and then we'll do the combat all at once. This other unit is an average unit, so they're a bit smaller. So they're going to fire at 6 shots at 6+ to hit, and let's see how they do. They got 2 hits. One was a 10, but because it's they're only 1 move away, it doesn't do double damage or triple damage. So they get 2 hits on the unit coming in at them. That unit suffered 2 casualties on the way in, so now they're up to 3. So now we've all reached the hand-to-hand crescendo. This unit here, the rear one, can support the unit in front of them. That unit can support the front of them. This Union unit, they're in 12 inches. They can support either one unit, but they can't support both. So they might choose to support this unit over here to the right just because they got a better chance of winning. You can have up to 4 supports. They have to be within 12 inches of the hand-to-hand. They add a +4 to the total at the end, almost like black powder. But you roll the hits to first, and you'll compare them. We'll see that in a minute. You subtract them away, then you add in the extra stuff at the end. But we'll go through all that in a minute, but that's how supports in general work. Other charge reactions include, besides stand and fire, you've got the counter charge, which is available to everyone except for artillery, and the orderly withdrawal. The counter charges, they'll meet halfway in between. If you counter charge, you can take your support with you too, so you don't get screwed like some other games. And so you would all move out there and hit them, and it'd be a big old fight. And then finally, there's the order of withdrawal is defending unit may retire, hit his unit up to 1 move directly away from the enemy. Artillery is not included in that either. The distance it can move depends on the type of unit and its formation. For instance, an infantry regiment in line can move 12 inches in a single move. Therefore, it can move up to a maximum of 12 inches to its rear, though it may stop sooner if it takes them directly behind cover, which is great. Let's say you're in front of a stone wall. Move over the stone wall. Boom. I'm going to stop right here. I'm going to fight. Units that choose to withdraw in an orderly fashion suffer no movement penalty, so you don't have to pay for crossing that terrain. The defending unit automatically forms up in line of battle, facing the enemy behind a piece of terrain if a unit if it can. If the charging unit still has enough movement left to contact the withdrawing unit, a round of melee ensues. Units fighting from behind cover receive a +1 to hit bonus. Charging units always complete their entire charge move, even if their defending unit is withdrawn. Alright, and we did the failing the charge morale test. You become like unnerved or panicked depending on how many, if you're already unnerved. Big thing is if you flee, and you flee through a friendly unit, a unit that loses its morale test may be forced to move through friendly units. In this case, the friendly unit or units are also forced to take a morale test. This may cause a complete breakdown of a brigade, division, or even a corps. The defending player keeps on checking for morale tests as long as there are friendly units fleeing through his other units. When a fleeing unit ends its move without clearing a friendly unit, simply place it within 1 inch on their side, where it came out of the non-fleeing unit. It can also happen that a fleeing unit crashes right into an enemy. If a fleeing unit touches an enemy unit during its flight or is forced to contact an enemy unit in any other way, no matter the size of the enemy unit, the fleeing unit is considered destroyed and removed from play. Following fleeing troops, a failed morale test causes the charge unit to flee. The charging unit may try to catch and destroy it. Use the maximum movement from the charging unit could go. If it can move into contact with a fleeing unit, the fleeing unit is considered destroyed or captured or removed from play. Charging units contacting new units. So if that unit flees through another one, and let's say these guys flee through these guys, and that unit would come through and make contact with them, that would be an automatic fight, and these guys wouldn't have a charge reaction. They would just take it in the face. So they'd fight automatically, because they'd have to pass a morale test just to survive these guys coming through them. And if they survive that, they wouldn't have to worry about another morale test from the unit coming at them. So that would take care of that. All right, so melee is very similar to shooting once you get through all these nuances. You've got these modifiers up here. So you got charging, you get +1. So if you're countercharging, you also get the +1. If you're fighting behind cover, you get +1 only if charged. You get charged in the flank, you get a -1 to hit, no charge reaction, and half the fighting dice. And then charged in the rear, -2 to hit, no charge reaction, no fight dice in the first round of combat. So you just get straight up jacked. Oh, that sucks. I didn't even know about that one. Oh, man. And then you compare the number you get for each side. You subtract away, what do you do? Determines who won or lost. The combat result is calculated by counting the number of hits each side would have scored plus any applicable modifiers in the combat result table. All right, the combat result table is here. Get that so you can see it without... All right, I'm going to read it to you in a second, but just in case you're a visual person. It's a little picture, too. It's kind of cool. I think that's supposed to... I don't know what the heck that's supposed to be at. Probably Gettysburg. Most of the pictures they take are from Gettysburg. It was from Atlanta, 1864. That's when Sherman's coming for him. Combat results table. These are added to the end, almost like black powder. And this was the supports I was talking about. Defender in earthwork or trenches, they get an automatic +5. Defender in hard cover gets +2 added to the end. Defender in light cover is +1. Per supporting unit is +1 up to a maximum of 4, like I mentioned. So that's kind of cool. the side that, okay, so, and then we just compare the ends. So let's go ahead and do one. We'll do this far. We'll do the big one first on the right over here. They're both large units. They're both going to have 8. And we'll roll this simultaneously, so it'll be more fun. And the Confederates are charging, so they will be a +1 to hit. So they'll be hitting on 5s. The Union will be hitting on 6s because they're getting charged. And we'll go from there. So the Union bossed up there. They do 7 casualties. The Confederates get 5 on the Union. And so the Confederates are going to win by 2. So let's consult the book and see what it says. All right, winning the combat. The side that won the combat, which is the Union, may now decide what to do. Victorious units may reform on the spot, facing any direction without advancing. Alternatively, they may attempt to capture the breaking enemy. Roll 1d10 for each of the victorious units and add the difference in combat result to the score. The result is the number of inches the victorious unit can move in pursuit. If it overtakes the enemy unit, the fleeing unit is deemed destroyed, the survivors being cut down or captured. If the victorious unit does not overtake the fleeing unit, it still moves the full pursuit move. It is possible for a supporting unit to overtake an enemy unit instead of the primary unit. It's possible for a supporting unit to overtake an enemy unit instead of the primary. That's crazy. If defeated, player scores an orderly withdrawal result, the winning player may not pursue. They must reform. Drawn combat, if neither side wins the combat, the charging unit is moved 1d5 inches directly away from the defending unit. And losing the combat, the side that lost the melee must take the break test, roll 2d10 and subtract the difference in combat result from the dice score. Consult the break test table to see what happens. All right, let's see what we got to do here. You have to do the losing unit first, because what happens to them really dictates what happens to the winning unit. So the Confederates lost by 2. So we're going to do a break test. We're going to do a morale test. The side that lost immediately takes a break test. Roll 2d10 and subtract the difference in combat results from the dice score. So they're going to roll 2d10 and they're going to subtract 2 from it. All right, roll a 12, so it goes to a 10. Unit becomes panicked, moves away from the combat. 2 full moves. In losing player's next turn, player may attempt to rally the unit, and supporting units must take morale test. Okay, so that unit moves back 20 inches, and now this unit has to take a morale test. They still get a +1 because this other unit's okay next to them. But that was a big whomping. I think at the end of this, they both take 1 fatigue casualty as well from just being in the hand-to-hand. Oh crap, I forgot. Each one of those hits also causes a casualty. So I think, I gotta remember how many. I think it was 8 and 6. No, sorry, it was 7 and 5. So let me add those extra casualties on. Some of these units are going to become smaller as well after this pounding. So after even the fatigue casualty, these guys lose. They're down to. They got 2 casualties now, but they lost a full base, so that are an average size unit. I'll keep moving my hand. Those guys got crushed. They ended up losing 12, so they go down to a small unit, and that's all they've got. That's pretty savage. So, word to the wise with hand to hand. Woo! Even if you win, you're still a loser. All right, now we're going to do a break test for these guys at +1. So they'll be looking for a 5+ to not go crazy. So they pass their morale test and they can stay there. Now these guys could follow up and I guess charge into them. Let me double check that, but that might be an option. It looks like it can only chase down the unit that fled. It doesn't say anything about getting into another hand-to-hand. So since the other unit held, it would actually stay right there. So they would just reform with supports. I think I even forgot to add the +1 for the support. No, I can't remember if I did. Both sides should have had a support, so it wouldn't have made a big difference. This would have, yeah, that would have done anything because they're both the same. All right, let's go on over to this other hand-to-hand. This is without supports for the Union, but the Confederates are going to have a +1 at the end. Confederates are looking for a 5 because they're charging. Union is looking for 6s. Confederates are going to be rolling 8 dice. The Union's going to be rolling 6. All right, so I've already taken casualties off here. The Union inflicted 3 casualties. The Confederates inflicted 4 on the Union. They both take 1 additional casualty for fatigue. So both guys took off a base and they have some extra casualties. But Union loses by 1 at first, then the support comes into play, so they lose by 2. So we've got a -2 for the Union losing. They're going to roll 2d10 -2. So that was an 8 -2 is a 6. The unit becomes panicked, moves away, 2 combat moves. And they can try to rally later on. So let's move them back and let's see if we can do a pursuit and how far they can get. So these guys move away 20 inches. They're down to a small unit with a unit cohesion of 12. They have no extra casualties. They would be, I think it's panicked, we said, right? Unit becomes panicked. They can try to rally next turn. All right, let's see how far. These guys are going to try to pursue them, see how far they can get and what that looks like. So there's no chance they'd catch them. So they'd roll a d10 for each unit. That'll be both of them. Add the difference. They're going to roll d10 +2 and they can move forward that far. Technically, it doesn't make sense, especially since the unit to their left got crushed. But if you win by a bazillion, you could really come after these guys and smack them. If you win by like 10, you could really chase them down and destroy a unit. Wouldn't tactically make sense for that one, especially since you can't attack other units. But that's it. So that's shooting, charging, melee, and morale. More than I thought I'd do, and that's awesome. So hopefully that worked for y'all. Hope you enjoyed it. We'll do some artillery, some cavalry, and some advanced rules in the next one. And yeah, so that should be good. It is amazing how fast these units got shredded. That was, 2 turns. These guys are half the size, and those guys are pretty messed up too, the Confederates over there. And even both units that won are shrunk down in size and have significant casualties. So it seems to be a pretty bloody game, which is cool. A little bit of Men Who Would Be Kings. All right, so I hope you enjoyed that. I will do links for the first couple videos in this series. I'll attach them in the description. And yeah, when we come back for the next one, it should be a good one as well, I hope. And I will continue to paint over this weekend, and hopefully we can get the 2 quick demonstration games for these both these rule systems and see how they really work. And that'll be great. So hope y'all have a great weekend, and keep on hobbying. You're awesome. We'll talk to you soon. All right, bye-bye.